Welcome back everyone. In today's video, I want to share with you why I'm heavily investing in property and why I believe property is a good investment class for me. I also want to share with you the strategies I will be using in 2025 to expand my property portfolio. Now, before we go into those strategies, I want to try and explain to you the various generic forms of investment options out there and how I've chosen to, curate my portfolio and the reasons behind it. So the way I think about it is two aspects to investment. There's a tangible aspect and an intangible aspect. What I mean by that is tangible is where you can touch and feel it, own it, it's out there, it cannot be moved, it's non-digital. For example, a house, is brick and mortar, has a postcode, has an address, it is there. And if it disappears tomorrow, well, there'll be a big and valid reason for why it's disappeared. The intangible element of a investment class are things like stocks and shares, cryptocurrencies, where I physically don't have direct access to. I can't touch it, feel it, hold it in my hand, so to speak. Like gold, for example, you can hold a gold bar. You can also choose to invest in gold in an intangible manner by buying shares in a gold bar, for example. So there's two key elements in investment that I personally consider: the tangible aspect, intangible aspect, and then I look at my portfolio and then figure out what works for me, what percentage of my portfolio I want to be tangible versus intangible, and the reasons for that. Main thing for me, I choose to have majority of my portfolio, and as I'm growing my investment, to be highly tangible and less so on the intangible element. There's two reasons for it. One, it has more leverage, and second, it allows it to be liquidated easily if and so needed. Because of that, for a longer term perspective, if I'm looking at my future, the generational wealth element, what I want to pass on to my family, my kids in the future, for me personally, it makes that process a lot easier. Now, there might be people out there who use intangible assets and feel it is a lot easier, and that's okay. So that's why my portfolio has a larger portion of it being tangible assets, in this case, property, and less so on the intangible assets, such as shares or cryptocurrency. So why property? Why not gold? Why not, barrels of oil? Now that I've got myself educated, I understand a lot more about property investing for now in the UK, but majority of these concepts within property work across the globe. This is why I chose to invest in property. It's out there, it's tangible, I can get my hands on it, it's leverageable, it provides equity. So if you're buying within a company, it shows as a very healthy company when you've got properties in the portfolio. Now, obviously, there will be leverage, so the free equity in the business will differ slightly, but that's a topic for another video. Generically speaking, you are able to instruct the sale of a property, so you've got more control over the property. You can leverage it by using different strategies, so a small amount of investment goes a long way investing in property. The other reason I invest in property is because it gives me two forms of income. One, the rental income, and secondly, the longer term capital appreciation. If you use the right strategies, it allows you to recycle all, if not most of your money you put into one deal, to pull that money out as much as possible, and then the investment required for the next project is reduced, obviously. That's why I like to use property, because it's leverageable, you're in control. 2025, what strategies am I going to be using to invest and grow my portfolio in property? So before I go into explaining the strategies I'm going to use, let me give you an insight into the various strategies that are available out there. There are buy-to-lets, there's HMOs, the BRR as known as, or buy, refurbish, refinance and rent, rent-to-rent, serviced accommodation, and housing associations. So what I mean by those, so buy-to-let are things like turnkey properties, is ready to go, you purchase them and it's on rent pretty much from the next day. You can market it for it. Okay, so that's one. HMOs are similar. Again, you can purchase them as a turnkey HMO, which is ready to be rented out. And then instead of renting the entire house to a single family or a single individual, you rent them room by room. Then you've got serviced accommodation, which is also known as holiday lets, for getting access to properties or owning properties, and then you leverage them or use them as an income tool by virtue of using things like Airbnb or Booking.com and similar sort of sites out there. Housing association or social housing strategy is fairly new in a way, and it kind of fits into the whole buy-to-let, BRR or HMO model. And what I mean by that is The property type almost can be anything. The housing association you are working with, in which area you are in, they will most likely suggest the type of property type they will require, whether that's a HMO setup, whether that's a standard single family let setup. Make sure you understand the type of property, the finish they require from you. Now, why housing association you might want to consider? In most cases, guaranteed rent at a fixed amount, where most of your maintenance, management of the people living in it and out of it is all managed by the housing association. You get given a fixed amount of rent per month and it is fully hands-off. So that's one of the benefits of why you may want to consider a social housing type of a strategy as an exit of your property investment journey. I will make additional videos on each of these strategies, going into detail of how I look out into the market, find the right property, how do I analyze them, whether that's the right property to be investing in, and I will make a series of videos explaining this. So if you'd like to see that, comment more below. So in 2025, my focus in the property investment is predominantly going to be on procuring more HMOs and more buy-to-lets and renting them out through housing association providers. Again, for the same benefits I mentioned above, I can have a property as a buy-to-let or an HMO, depending on the provider I'm working with. I will work to their requirements and obviously hand that property off for them to rent it out to whoever they normally rent it out to. But I, in return, effectively get a fixed amount of rent per month. And these contracts are normally for a longer period of time, anywhere between 3 and 5 years as minimum. As opposed to a single let, for example, nominally is a 12-month contract. So that's the key difference here. So there's longevity, there's more security, and it provides a lot more of a safety net for investment in that sense. So that's one reason why I want to be working with housing associations. Equally, I'd also want to acquire these HMOs and acquire these buy-to-lets and rent them out the traditional sense as well. And the reason for doing that in addition is to balance the level of cash flow and the level of risk. Obviously, once I bought the property, I've refurbished it, or if it's pretty much ready to go, then I hand it straight to the housing association provider and my monthly rent keeps coming in. And nominally, the reason this works for the housing association providers is because that rent is slightly less than the market rent you could achieve at the maximum. But it's guaranteed and therefore it works. Therefore, it's a low risk strategy in that sense. But what I would like to do is to create a combination of these things where I can get low risk and fixed income coming in, and some of the other ones in the portfolio, I can rent it out in a traditional sense, either myself, if I have the time and if I want to, or going to the usual management companies for either HMOs or buy-to-lets. The reason for that is you can get a slightly higher rent compared to what you can get from housing associations. Yes, there is a slightly higher risk, but there's also a higher reward in this case. I'm just trying to balance my portfolio, so to speak. So those are the two key strategies I will be considering in 2025, which are buy-to-lets and HMOs, combining with the exit of a housing association provider and the traditional management route that already exists. However, I also want to share with you the kind of key regions that I will be focusing on sourcing or procuring these properties in. I personally want to get as many properties in my books as possible, and therefore I'm going to be looking to the northwest or northeast of England, which is where the demand for people to rent these properties are higher, and also the purchase price for these properties are also lower, which allows me to then get access to more properties, versus in the south you could probably get 1, maybe 2 properties across this year, versus maybe 3 or 4 or maybe even 5. Depending on the type of house you're looking at and the region you're looking at, you could get more. So that's the reason why I'm going to be focusing my interest and search for properties predominantly in the northwest or northeast of England. If you'd like to learn more tips about property investing, how to run your own business or start a business from scratch, hit the like and subscribe button. If there are any videos that you'd like me to make, leave that in the comments below and I'll consider that for my next video.